What's Crack-A-LAckin? Welcome in to My Mind is a Weapon Fantasy Football Show.
Welcome into another episode of My Mind is a Weapon Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host, Sleaze. Today's episode, we're going to be diving into top 10 waiver wire pickups you should be making for Week 8. BYEMAGGEDON. We have 6 teams on a bye this week, so it is crunch time, big win week. Here you have the Lions, the Raiders, the Rams, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, and the Jaguars are on a bye here, guys. Before we dive into it, guys, make sure you tap that thumbs up, hit that subscription button. It helps me out a ton. Turn that bell on as well. I will be live Thursday throughout the weekend, all the way to Monday again, just like last week. If you guys haven't checked out drafters.com, make sure you sign up using promo code SLEAZE. It will double your initial deposit up to $100. You can do best ball drafts, pick'ems, DFS drafts, and we drop everything from our pick'ems into the Guys FF Discord, which is also pinned in the comments and in the description of the video. I host it with my partner, Big Draft Energy. We cover everything fantasy football for you guys 24/7. And I'm going to give you players that are under 50% based on Yahoo. I'm going to give you the fab you should use and the waiver order if you guys do waiver order in your leagues, guys. So I cover all the bases for you guys. And as always, if you have any comments, questions, drop them down below. Doesn't have to pertain to this video. Try to answer every single one of them, guys. Now let's dive into the top 10 players of all positions that you should be picking up heading into Week 8. Starting off with number 1, it is going to be the old man Aaron Rodgers, who is only owned in 28% of Yahoo leagues. They are going to be going up on Sunday Night Football in the revenge game against the Green Bay Packers at home. This one is going to be must-watch TV. And it's like people still don't respect Aaron Rodgers. And last week I had Aaron Rodgers to start. He absolutely dropped 33.5 points on Cincy. He's had 3 games of over 20 points, 2 games over 30 points. And you don't think he's going to come into Green Bay absolutely firing. The over-under is 44.5 in that game as of now. But we got to look at his stats here. So 172 pass attempts. That's low, but he's been so efficient. It's crazy. 118 completions, 1,270 passing yards, 68.6 completion percentage. That's what I'm talking about. Number 8. 14 touchdowns to 5 picks. That's what you want. You saw the Jonnu Smith, the Pat Fry with the Darnell Washington tight end Arthur Smith special last week with 4 touchdowns to the tight ends. Still has 18 yards rushing. Not bad for his age. Deep balls 11. You like to see that come up. You like to see DK get more involved in this game. QBR 54.7. That's number 19. And points is 105.6. Guys, he's a top 15 QB. And people just still disrespect the guy because he's on the Steelers and because it's Aaron Rodgers. And it doesn't make any sense to me. You're going up against the Green Bay Packers. And the Green Bay Packers defense has not kind of been the same. And you just saw Jacoby Brissett kind of light him up with Trey McBride. And you know Arthur Smith special is coming with the tight ends in this game. And I really do like Aaron Rodgers at Green Bay to have another 20-plus point game this season. And if you're on your waiver wire, obviously it's on a top pick, right? Don't blow like your number 1 waiver spot for it. I'd say range 6 to 8. And fab-wise, with all the buys that are happening, maybe 15 to 20%, maybe even more if you need that win in your league that week and there's no quarterbacks available. I really like Aaron Rodgers this week in the revenge game. Quarterback number 2, you know it, I know it, Joe Flacco, the guy I had as a smash start with Aaron Rodgers last week, absolutely popped. Well, not a smash start because I do my smash starts later, but I had them both as starts going into that game. Glad I could help you guys out. I like seeing the comments you guys gave me back on that call. It was absolutely amazing. That is what we do it for, man. We're out here. I'm here to help you guys. So when we're looking at Joe Flacco here, guys, this is unbelievable, the situation he is in now. Went at Green Bay, 22 points. Versus Pittsburgh at home, 32 points. You saw the Jamar Chase eruption with targets. You've seen T. Higgins be involved. You even saw Losavas got a little involved last game, even though he kind of had the drops for the past 2 games. And now the defenses have to adjust to having a quarterback that can make their pass game relevant, which has opened the run game up for Chase Brown, even though they have a terrible offensive line. So when you're looking at Joe Flacco, we'll look at his numbers here. And remember, you got to look at 4 of these games were with Cleveland, right? So these are rough. So 252 for 153 completions, 1,376 yards, 60.7 completion rate, 7 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, guys. But since he's been to the Bengals, it's been 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That is what you're looking for. 16-yard rushing like Aaron Rodgers. You're not going to get much. Deep balls, guys. 23, that is number 8. It has been electric since joining the Bengals as well. QBR 42.5 and 76.6 points. He is QB 29. But we got to look back here. He'd never even had a game over 15 points in the 4 games with the Browns. 1 point and 3 point in week 3 and week 4. So you can see the difference. He played Green Bay in week 3 for the Browns. He played Green Bay in week 6 for the Bengals, and he dropped 22. He dropped 3 points for the Browns. So Joe Flacco is dialed in beyond belief. I like it for another 20-point game here. You're going to get the New York Jets. They don't know who their quarterback is. You don't know, even if it's Fields or it's Tyrod Taylor, it is going to be ugly. They don't know if they have Garrett Wilson. We don't know what's going on with Breece Hall in a trade rumor. I like Joe Flacco. Again, you got BYEMAGGEDON going on. He's going to absolutely smash this week again and just feed Jamar Chase nonstop. Heading over to the running back side, player number 3 is going to be Kyle Manunjai. And the Chicago Bears, man, they may have found something here. Ben Johnson had been hyping him up before the season, and we waited till about week 7, and we got a little eruption from Kyle Manunjai this last week against the New Orleans Saints. You saw him get 81 yards on the ground with 6.23 yards per carry and a touchdown. Even put in work through the air with 2 catches for 13 yards. Now, all these numbers you look at, remember, these are playing literal limited snaps the entire time. So 35 attempts, 162 yards, 4.63 yards per carry. That is not bad at all. Found the end zone last week for the first time. First NFL touchdown. Glad to see that. 6 receptions, 61 yards. Again, snap share 29.3. That's on the season, right? So he ranks 51st there. But last week he played 45% of the snaps and he played the goal line work. That is what we're looking for here. So target share 4.9. Again, that's low. Red zone touches 5. That's not bad at all for what he's played on the field this year. Points 34.3. That is RB 47. Now you're going to get the Baltimore Ravens here. You might have Lamar Jackson back in this game. We don't know, how it's going to look with, Lamar, if he's back out there. He didn't practice with his hamstring yet or not. If it's Cooper Rush, you can absolutely flex Kyle Manunjai. This is going to be a pickup-based goal line-wise plug-and-play, right? Because DeAndre Swift hasn't had a goal line carry probably since elementary school at this rate. That's how it's always gone for him in his entire NFL career. This big bowling ball Manunjai, if this is going to be a shootout game versus Baltimore at Baltimore, if Lamar is there, they get to the red zone, and you need a plug-and-play flex play, this guy could fall into the end zone. You saw him get all the work. So if you're looking at your waiver order, this may be a top 3 to 5 pickup, especially if you have DeAndre Swift take it to like the 3rd because you need that handcuff for him because you know his injury history, his size. Fab-wise, I'd probably go, I'd say 10, 12, 15%, just depending on your league and how, if it's running back heavy or not. But Kyle Manunjai may even be a flex play for me on my sleeper plays this week. I just got to do all that research. I'm not there yet on it, but you got to pick this guy up. Number 4 is Tyjae Spears, and he was on my list last week, and he's still only owned in 29% of leagues, which is absolutely bonkers to me. Now, I know he's only given you 7 and 9 points since his return. His snap share has been around 55% since his return. If you count that game 5 against Arizona, that's why his snap share looks lower on here, right? So we'll talk about his stats. 14 attempts, so he's been playing very limited since, being on the PUP list to start the season. 67 yards, 4.790 touchdowns, 7 receptions, 37 yards. I thought he was going to get way more receptions last game. I went to Tony Pollard, which was shocking. Again, the snap share is down because he played that first game very limited. Target share 7.8%, red zone touches 1. You like to see all these come up. But what you got to look at here with the Tennessee Titans is, you're getting the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, it's a very tough run D in between the tackles, which is why I didn't like Tony Pollard last week at all. And I'm not going to like Tony Pollard again. And which is why I didn't like Kamani Vidal last week. I told you guys all to sit in versus the Colts. Don't play the one-game hype. You play the matchups. That is how you play fantasy football. Now, are the freaking Titans really going to keep Tony Pollard around with the trade deadline looming, with teams looking for running backs, with contenders looking to get depth? I just don't see it happening. This team, I know they fired their head coach. New head coach came in. Cam Ward kind of had his best game, even without Calvin Ridley. But still, this team is not going anywhere this year. And if I own Tony Pollard, I'm definitely making sure I have the handcuff of Tyjae Spears. And he might even be a flex play again, or like a sleeper dart throw play if you need on BYEMAGGEDON, because they're going to be playing from behind. And they're going to be playing against the number 1 offensive football. It's the Indianapolis Colts. So the passing work should be there for Spears. Now, if I'm using my waiver wire, it's probably like a 6 to 8 range. Don't go too high. If you have Tony Pollard, maybe bump it up a spot. And fab-wise, I'd say 8 to 12%. This is more like a long-term play because if you remember last year, Tyjae Spears was the fantasy football championship darling down the stretch. And if he can get healthy and he can get going and say Tony Pollard has moved, you're looking at a RB2 play weekly. So this man should not be on your waiver wire either way. Number 5, and this one's kind of interesting. Running back number 3 is going to be Brashard Smith. So Brashard Smith got a lot of work last game. I had Isaiah Pacheco as my smash play for 15+ point lock. And of course, the Chiefs blow him out by 30 points, and Pacheco sits the whole, into the third, all the way into the fourth, because the Chiefs just had this game won. So what did you get to see? You got to see a Brashard Smith game with 14 carries for 39 yards. 14 carries. That's how many carries that Isaiah Pacheco could have had to finish out a strong game. But this guy gets it done to the receiving game as well with 5 receptions for 42 yards. He is a great pass-catching back. So when we're looking at his stats, remember, guys, these are all being RB3. I mean, he's had 5 games on the season playing under 15% of the snaps. So very, very limited. So 22 attempts, 67 yards, 3.5 per carry, 14 receptions, 122 yards. He gets it done to the air, like I said. Again, snap share very low, target share very low, red zone touches. Still 2 red zone touches for never playing that much is not bad. 32.9 points. Now, why I like this kind of a lot this week as a sleeper play, which he's probably going to be on my list this week because it's BYEMAGGEDON and there's so many nightmare buys going on, is you're going to get the Washington Commanders. Now, JD5 goes down. Mariota is a serviceable backup. That's fine. But with JD5 down, are they going to rush out Terry McLaurin off the injury? They're going to bring back Debo off the injury on Monday night. That's going to be the nightmare waiting for, to happen. But guys, this Kansas City Chiefs offense with Patrick Mahomes and Rashee Rice back is probably just going to light up everyone. So in this game, we're probably looking at another Raider-style game here where Brashard Smith may be able to see 10+ carries or 10+ touches, and he's going to get a lot of receiving work either way. They had him out there in the first and second quarter as receiving back in plays. So those are there as well. They gadget up, reverses the Patrick Mahomes toss pass when he double pitches it, and Brashard Smith's been involved. So once your involvement starts to go up, the offense is so good. I'd say if you have a waiver order, it's not that high of a pickup. I'd say it's like, 5 to 8 range, 6 to 9 range around there, and probably like 8 to 12% in fab leagues. But what if he starts to take this role? So if I have Pacheco, I definitely want Brashard Smith, but I'm also okay possibly flexing Brashard Smith as a sleeper play in deep competitive leagues this week because I think the Chiefs are just going to beat the brakes off the Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football. Number 6, heading over to the wide receiver side, it is going to be Kayshon Boutte, who is only owned in 33% of leagues. This is going to skyrocket. A star is in the making here on the New England Patriots side with this 23-year-old wide receiver and the connection that he is gaining with Drake May. And when you are tied to Drake May, who's probably throwing the prettiest deep ball in football right now, Kayshon Boutte, of course, last week pops a deep ball touchdown. 3 touchdowns in the past 2 games with him, 26 points and 14 points. You have to be targeting this guy, especially against Cleveland this week, because Cleveland is very good versus the run. This is going to have to be a pass-heavy attack from the Patriots this week. And Kayshon Boutte, man, look at these numbers. 25 targets, 20 receptions, 356, 4 touchdowns, 12.7% target share. That is going up. 72.9% snap share. You'd like to see that in the 80s, but they do have a rotational wheel kind of going on. But he's kind of emerging as the wide receiver 1 or 2 here. So this is very, very interesting. Route participation, 75.3%. That's number 61. Red zone targets. When he has one, it says he has 1 target, right, for 92, but he's had like 3-4 catches outside the 25, 20-yard line where he's been tackled at the 1 and 2 as well. He could probably have 6-7 touchdowns, which is bonkers on the year. So 79.6, he's a top 30 wide receiver at wide receiver 29. And when you're looking at the Cleveland Browns defense this week, they literally are number 1 versus the run, number 1 in yards per carry, number 1 in yards allowed. This defense is absolutely a nightmare up front. And you know that Ramondre Stevenson isn't having that game he had last week. And Travion Henderson's been phased pretty much out, which is bonkers. So if I'm on the waiver wire and I need a wide receiver, this guy is a flex play. Like literally flex play for probably the next 4 or 5 weeks with the way he's gaining momentum. So I'm willing to spend my waiver wire 2 to 4 range. I like to save number 1 for a pure handcuff running back. So I wouldn't say number 1, but fab wise, 15-20% as well, maybe even 25% if you're desperate, because the connection is growing. The matchup is great this week. You're going to be at home versus the best run D, and I like Kayshon Boutte a ton this week as even a flex start, and the fact that he's on waiver wires is bonkers. Number 7, wide receiver number 2 is going to be Tez Johnson of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we just saw Mike Evans, man, I had him as a smash play. Took that deep ball, got pretty much dragged down. Broken collarbone, looks like going to be out for most of the season. probably makes it back for the playoffs if Tampa makes it into the playoffs at this rate. Their wide receiver room is just falling apart. We don't know if Chris Godwin's going to be back anytime soon. We know Jalen McMillan's neck injury is very, very dangerous. He's probably week 12. So you're going to have Emeka Egbuka as your gadget guy, and Tez Johnson is a speedster out of Oregon who's 165 pounds dripping wet that can fly. And you saw him last night even flying through the air with his vertical leap. So we're looking at these numbers. Remember, he didn't even play weeks 1 through 3, and he barely played 30% snaps week 4 and week 5. So the past 2 weeks, he's been 672 and 68, averaging 70% snaps. That's what you want. So 19 targets, 10 receptions, 170 yards. There you go. 10 receptions, 170 yards. You tell he's a bomber right there. That's 17 yards per catch. 2 receiving touchdowns, back-to-back games. He's had a touchdown in each. Target share 6.6%. Again, he hasn't been out there. 34.7% snap share. Again, he's not out there. 117. Route participation 40.5. But all 3 of those has come up massively here in these last 2 weeks. So red zone target still 0, 39.5 points. Wide receiver 65. Now, why do you got to like this? So the bye is coming for Tampa, which is probably when you're going to get Chris Godwin back. Right? Maybe they get Bucky back this week, which would really help them, right? Because Rachaad White didn't look that good last night. So you're going up against the Saints this week. You've got Mike Evans season over, Chris Godwin down, Jalen McMillan down, Emeka Egbuka will be back out there. He looked kind of hampered off the hamstring last night. Tez looked great. He's had 3 games, 10 points, 12.5 points, 15.8 points, back-to-back touchdowns, like I said. You know Baker Mayfield's a gunslinger. Tez Johnson, if you're on the waiver wire right now, it's probably like a waiver 4 to 5 range, fab of, I'd say like 8 to 12% or maybe 10 to 15% if you're desperate, because after the bye, it could be back to, Chris Godwin back, Emeka Egbuka, maybe Tez, controls the wide receiver 3 spot, just becomes a home run, boom or bust guy. But I really do think in this game, after you saw the volume of 9 targets last night, even though Baker Mayfield was sailing his passes, that Tez Johnson has earned his way up the depth chart role either way. So this is a nice guy to have in a very, very, high-powered offense, pass-heavy with Baker Mayfield. So if Tez Johnson's available and needed a flex play this week, it's not a bad dart throw. Number 8, and this could be either Jaden Higgins or, right? So Christian Kirk, make sure you're paying attention to the injuries as well here. But this is the guy that I want if he's out there healthy. I want the vet that the Houston Texans talked about being their security blanket that's just been hampered by injuries this year. So Christian Kirk obviously didn't play the first 2 weeks, and then weeks 3, 4, and 5 played a little more limited, 67, 61, 49% snaps. And then before the week 7 kickoff, like the day before, he had a small hamstring where he was battling to play and didn't play. So it was close to playing. So if he's going to be out there in week 8 versus San Francisco, we're also looking at Nico Collins, who went down with a concussion, and he went down with a concussion on Monday night, and they play on Sunday. So they lose that extra day for him to possibly clear protocol. Even if he does or doesn't, I still like Christian Kirk. I'm going to explain why here in a second. So 16 targets, 10 receptions, 109 yards, 0 touchdowns, 16.8 target share, number 56, snap share 58.3. Again, he's been playing hampered and limited. Route participation 68.9%. That's not bad for his snap share. Red zone target 0 and 20.9 points. Now, you get the 49ers, right? And you saw what happened to Drake London. I told you, Drake London is going to be in for a tough game against Lenore. That's exactly what happened. Where did they feast on us last week? They feast on us with Kyle Pitts and across the middle with Darnell Mooney. So that is exactly what is going to happen with Dalton Schultz and Christian Kirk here this week against the San Francisco 49ers, because that's our weak spot with Fred Warner down. So if you have a waiver wire pickup, remember, you got to pay attention to the injury report too, and it may not come out till later. So you could gamble and take Jaden Higgins, but I don't like Jaden Higgins on the outside. I'd rather have a Jalen Knoll if possible. So this is a tough one, but I still think Christian Kirk's going to play, and I'd still rather take the gamble on him over the other guys, just in my opinion. So if you have a waiver wire, this is probably, 8 to 10 range. I don't think a lot of people are even going to think about this. I forgot to say what he's owned in. He's only owned in 23% of leagues. So this is a guy that people aren't even looking at that could be an absolute flex monster play, especially with Nico Collins down. Fab-wise, probably 2 to 5% because people aren't really going to think about it. And if he comes back in this game, I love Christian Kirk as a flex play this week, especially if the possibility of Nico Collins being down. Number 9, there's a new sheriff in town, and the Los Angeles Chargers bolt up a Rondé Gadsden. So I got to toot my own horn here a little bit, man. Rondé Gadsden was my sleeper tight end of the NFL draft coming out of Syracuse, especially with the father blood of playing in the NFL as well, which you have to like. Now, Justin Herbert has found his Antonio Gates-style wide receiver for the Chargers, which is wild, guys. And you just got to listen to these numbers. So 28 targets, 22 receptions, 308 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. This guy was on the waiver wire, owned him 4% of leagues. 13.5% target share, 48.6% snap share, 50.6 route participation, slot snaps, even 55, which is number 27. Red zone targets in the top 10, which is number 9, and 56.8. He is tied in 18. Guys, he didn't play in week 1 or week 2. In week 3, he played 20% of the snaps. In week 4, he played 48% of the snaps. Week 5, he played 54% of the snaps. So you see it going up and up and up. Then week 6, 75. Week 8, 79. That is almost tied in 1 usage, and he's had 3 games of 10-plus points, and last week he dropped 32.9 with 7 receptions, 164 yards. He's also had 3 games of 9, 8, and 7 receptions, or 7 targets. This guy is becoming an absolute must-have tight end. He should be 100% owned across the board. If you are tight end needy, this may be a 1 to 2 waiver wire play if you need this week. You're going to get the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are very good versus the wide receiver until they play the Eagles, and they're very good versus the quarterback, and they struggle versus the tight end. This is going to be another smash spot for Rondé Gadsden, and he's probably going to jump up to like 70% owned after this, and make sure you don't miss out on it because, man, Herbert loves this guy. Number 10, I never thought we would be here. It is Dalton Schultz of the Houston Texans, and remember what I said with Christian Kirk and the 49ers. Let's say Christian Kirk doesn't even make it out there. Dalton Schultz is going to absolutely feast if Nico Collins is out of this game as well against my 49ers, because that is where we struggle. Now, I know Dalton Schultz is never the sexy pick, but guys, he's had 4 games of 10-plus points in a row and just dropped 23 points last night. That is absolutely phenomenal for Dalton Schultz. So let's look at his stats here. 37 targets, 30 receptions, 284 yards. Hasn't found the end zone yet. If he's going to do it any week, it is this week against the 49ers. Snap share 70%, not bad there. Route participation 80.6, that's not bad at all either. Slot snaps 113. They line this guy up everywhere because their wide receiver room is banged up. That's number 7. Red zone targets is 3, that's 21st. And he's tied in 17 on the year with 58.4 points. But you have to look at this since the beginning of the season, right? So his snap share week 1 and week 2 was 54, 59%. Cade Stover was out there. He was making an impact in the offense, and he went down for the season, right? So targets were 4 and 5. And then week 3, when he's out, he goes up to 80%. Week 4, 80%, 6 targets. Week 5 at Baltimore, that was an ugly game. He wasn't needed. They kind of ran him over. So he played less snaps at 59, but he still had 13.5. And then last night as well, 75 to 80% range and 10 targets. What? Dalton Schultz with 10 targets is something I never thought I would say in 2025. And when you have possibly Nico Collins, and remember what I said with the Christian Kirk, that's a gamble I'm willing to take on him on the waiver wire this week instead of like Jalen Noel. If they're both not out there, dude, Dalton Schultz may be a top 10 tight end play again, maybe even top 5 with all the buys happening. And if you have a waiver wire pickup, probably, it's never sexy with him. So I don't really know if you have to use that much. It could be like, 8 to 10 waiver wire order. If you're desperate, maybe 6 to 8, I guess. And then fab wise, probably like 5 to 10%, because you're not going to really want Dalton Schultz long term. You get the Broncos after this week. So very, very tough matchup coming for him after it. But splash play 100%. If you need him, I love Dalton Schultz play this week. Thanks for rocking with me, guys. That is the end of the episode. That is my top 10 waiver wire pickups that you guys should be targeting. And remember, guys, Jackson Dart is not on there. He should be owned in every single league and not on any single waiver wire. Same with the Rondé Gadsden. These guys are almost becoming must-start players every single week, matchup proof. And they're so low owned, man. You have to go get those 2 as well. So my next video, we will dive into all the start sits for the week: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. And then tomorrow we'll get into rankings, and then we'll go smash starts over the weekend, sleeper plays, everything like that. The grind content is here. Let's go. Before you guys head out, make sure you tap that like button, hit that thumbs up, and hit that bell, hit that subscription button. It helps me out a ton. I can't thank you guys enough. And remember, guys, drafters and the guys FF, all pinned in the comments and in the description of the video if you want to check that out as well. And that's it for me, and I hope you guys enjoyed the content. Sleaze Bomb out. I'll catch you guys in the next episode.